Welcome to TLC tutorial videos. In this Windows skills review video, we will discuss the Windows commands concepts, which is part 2 of our presentation.
All right, now let's discuss about the Windows commands. Okay, the first thing first is whenever you want to know the list of commands, you can use uh, like help, right? When you type help in your command prompt, here I'm typing help, it will list all the commands. So you can always use this help when you're doing your exam also. Okay, that'll you don't need to memorize anything. All you need to know is which command works for what, and that's also clearly explained here. So the main thing what you need to do when you're doing like these exams, so it's always the helps the command will be like, it will be a command, and then you will be operating on the path. The command always operates on the resources, either directory or file. Either you copy, move, rename, or you changing your directory to any directory inside your file system. So you always navigate from one directory to another directory to access the resources, and then after accessing the resources you do anything, right? You can change the privileges, or like you copy it, or you remove it sometimes, and then you create the directory, you create the files, so on and so forth. Okay, so the key thing is, so that's why I spend quite a bit of time in path. So all you need to know is how to build a path to access a specific resource where you can operate on the like using this command, right? All right, so the help is pretty critical, like very useful for you. So the other interesting thing is, once you know what command you want to use, then again comes Windows for your help, right? Basically, you can use the keyword help, and then you type any command, right? That's how it is, help, and then the command name. Then it gives you all the details about that particular command. Okay, say for example, in this case I will demo this, but just pay attention here also. So I'm trying to give me help regarding command xcopy. So it clearly says in the first line, xcopy copies files and directory trees. Okay, and then how do you read this? How to read this help file? It says command, and then you need source. So if you see the source and then the other arguments here, right? Source is not having any square parentheses, square brackets. Only so, I mean, all everything, including destination and everything, remains in square brackets, but source is not. That means it's a default, it's a mandatory argument. I have to provide source for this command. Okay, and then I can provide destination, or I don't need to. If there is, if I'm like operating on the same directory, for example, I don't need to provide destination. Okay, it's an optional. Anything comes under square brackets or optional. And then in this optional, there are many choices for you to use, and then using those options you can do exactly precisely what you want to do. Okay, this is how you need to read your help message. Okay, in Linux or Unix, we call a man page or something like that. Man is nothing but manual. Okay, so the same idea, it's now incorporated in Windows also because it's pretty powerful in Linux. So Windows adapting the same strategy. In the olden days when they are like disk operating system DOS, we don't have such an extensive help menus in Windows during that time. All right. So now I already explained how to get the list of commands and then how to get a help for a specific command. That itself should help you big time during your exams, okay? Or when you are trying to work in operating system, I mean the command line operating system, okay? So let's look into some of the key commands here. For example, one of the important thing you will do most of the time is you want to create a directory. So how do you create a directory in command line? So there are two commands you can use. You can use either make dir or make directory. Make dir is more like Unix flavor. Now Windows adapting that. In the very earlier days, they have simply md was the make dir command, like make directory command. So this command will create a directory. So in this case, we have some flavors here, right? So basically, make dir wake tech will create all these commands. Make sure you assume that all these commands are executed. You are in the current directory of your home, right? What's your home here? In the case of Windows, it is C colon and users, and then it's your home, right? So from here, we are operating all these commands. Make sure you remember that. All right. So in this case, so wektex will create a directory under your home. So the second command, basically what it does is, it not if there is wektex directory, it will not create wektex directory. It will just go and create courses. But if you don't have wektex directory under your user home, it will create both the directories. Okay, it will first create wektex and then drill down to the way from wektex. It will create a child courses for wektex. Okay, so it's a very neat little thing, right? If you just use this, for example, and you don't have anything under this hierarchy, it will create wektex and its child courses and also courses child programming in one shot. Okay, so it's pretty neat little thing. Okay, um, the other key thing is, suppose this is only applicable to Windows, not to Linux. It is, if you want to have a space in your directory name, you can use within quotes, right? This is the within quotes. If you give that, it'll create a directory name with space. I'm not a big fan of this spaces. Generally, the recommended thing is use underscore if you want to have like a token to differentiate your words instead of spaces. Okay, that's what I always recommend, because in Linux there is no such thing like spaces. And the other key thing you need to remember is, in Windows it's not case sensitive. In Linux and Unix it's case sensitive. So I always recommend my students to follow something which is common across all the operating system. Okay, Mac, it's pretty much they use shells and it follows exactly like Linux. So Windows is the only operating system behaves little different. But if you're very if you must, you need to use some spaces, go ahead and do it by all means, because the OS provides the, it allows you to do that, so go ahead and exploit that. But if there is no real business requirement or any key advantage you're going to exploit, then just follow the standard. Okay, that's my recommendation. That's on a side note. Okay, so if I want to create files in Windows, there are so many ways you can do that. One such way is, you all know the default application Notepad always comes with Windows, right? So you can launch the Notepad by typing Notepad command and then give the path. Then you should be able to create file1.txt. Again, you will create the file only after you save using the save option, save menu item, right? In Notepad. So make sure you remember that. The other interesting thing about Notepad always saves the file in text format. I will demo that during my demo thing, right? So if you want to have another extension, like, so you need to use all files. Okay. Again, there is some tricks and a little tricky in Notepad. So uh, I will not use Notepad anything other than some short text I want to write. Okay. Other than that, I will not recommend you to use Notepad. All right. So especially, I don't want you to write programs using Notepad. You should use some other editors like Sublime Text or like Notepad plus plus. It's an excellent text editor in Windows available for you. Okay, and it's free. I would recommend, if you want to write programs, use some other text editor, not Notepad. Okay, so the other thing is, if you want to use, if the other way to create file here is using echo. So there are a couple of things happening here which I want you to know. Echo will just echo the characters whatever you're typing. You're saying this is my file, that's your input. The echo will echo your input line again on the monitor, right? But what we are trying to say here, instead of echoing back to my output device, just this operator we call a redirection operator. This is the same functionality we'll use in Linux and Unix also. So pay attention here. This is a redirection operator. So what it means is, instead of outputting my content to the monitor, just go and create a file in this path, like file1.txt, and then write this text inside that file. That's what this entire command is doing. Okay. So the other thing, like I said, suppose you want to have a file name with space, like directory, you need to use quotes to create that. Okay. Again, this is a very unique feature, one and only available in Windows. Okay. So if you really want to have spaces in your file name or directory name, file name also, okay, I understand there might be some reasons you might want to have space, but directory name, I'm not sure about that. Okay. So again, how do I see the content of my file? Okay. So there are a couple of ways. There are multiple ways to do that. Here I'm just sharing with you a couple of ways. There is a command called type. Okay. Again, if you want to know all these commands, like what exactly they are doing, what are all the options available, you can always use help and then the command name that will give you all the details. So if you use the type, that will show the content. Or you can also use more. More has some real advantage, is that, like, if you have a file which is like a huge file, if you say type, it will just I'm not sure, in the olden days it just goes up, like all the, it'll just show, if you have 5 pages, it'll just show boom, fifth page, which is not very helpful. So if when you use more, it'll go page by page. Okay, so if you keep clicking, it'll show one page after another page. I will demo this during my demo. All right. So the other key thing here is change directory, right? Change directory is This is one of the most important command. We always use it. So when I want to change directory from my current directory to some other directory, or if I want to maneuver myself, navigate to some other place, I use this command. Some of the simple things, like I said in the very first thing, if you say cd dot dot, it will take you to your parent. Okay, if you say cd c colon, like C drive, this will take you to the root. Okay, these are a couple of important things. And other thing is, wherever you want to go to a desired location, you can use the cd and then the path you want to go, like build a path. You can use both kinds of path, either absolute or relative path, and you can use that with cd command. Okay, so the other interesting command here is listing your directory. So sometimes this is the most important one in Linux we use all the time, but here also, since Windows has a very good graphical user interface explorer, you generally don't use this command at all, right? So it's a subtle way of your workflow will be completely different. Most of the Windows users are very comfortable using graphical user interface. So they seldom use the command line. But command line and PowerShell are very powerful sometimes when you want to do things really faster. All right. So in command line, to list the directory, we use dir command. Okay. And dir comes with several options here. There are like 15, 20 options are there. I am just listing here some of the more common options we normally use. So one of them is the /n will use the long format, okay, and then the slashes displays the files in a specific directory and also subdirectories, right? And the O lists the files in sorted order. Again, what kind of sorted order? It's based on the timestamp or alphabetical or size. There are tons of variations here. Those things are all you can get it by typing help command, right? Just type help dir, then it'll list you all the options what you want to use. Okay, now comes the most notorious, and people always struggle again with copy command, but it's pretty straightforward. But the key thing is you need to understand how to build a path to access your resource. Okay, so copy has two arguments. Okay, one is a source. So this is like so this is my source, and this is my I'm sorry, I want to change the color here. This is my destination, this is my destination, this is my source. I need to copy whatever here to this here, right? So I need to provide my source and destination, the where my resources are placed, right? Where my current uh, my resource is placed, like the source of my resource, and then which is the location I want to copy that resource to a specific location. That's my destination. You have to provide that. How do you? So there are two ways you can provide that, right? It's nothing but path. You can use either absolute path or relative path. Again, it depends. Sometimes, most of the time, I use relative path because from my current place, I should be able to navigate, which might be very, the path might be very small and easier. Okay, but sometimes it doesn't make any. It's not. It doesn't matter. I can just use an absolute path, and it's fine. Okay, so so one key thing we need to understand is we have two resources, right? We have files and as well as directories. So copy also comes in two flavors. One is a simple copy. This copy command just copies one or more files. Okay, whereas the other command xcopy copies the files and directories. It's xcopy is a little powerful, like a superset of copy command. Okay, again, since we are all I come from old school, we always use copy command for files, and most of the time you will copy files. So if you make a big mistake, you basically copy the entire directory structure, which is not the obvious choice for you. Okay, so when you are dealing with files, just go use copy. But when you are trying to copy something like a big tree, directory structure tree, then go for extended copy. So in this case, in this example, I'm trying to copy my picture.jpg. It's a picture file to CTA 120. Okay, and I'm using an absolute path. We are using the same example in our directory structure in the very first slide I used. So in the absolute path, I start from my root drive, go to my users, go to my home from users, my home, and then from there I go to VecTech, courses, programming, data, my picture. That's how I access to my source. Okay, so this is my source path. Okay, this one is my source path. Once that's where my source, I need to define my destination, right? So again, I give all my destination, right? Courses, system, and CTA 120 is the directory where I want to copy this file. So this is the destination. So command source is one argument, and destination is the second argument. Okay, so again, you can use a relative path here. So when you are using relative path, it is we need to know the current directory. In the absolute path, I don't care where I am currently placed because it's always starts from the root drive, right? But in the relative path, relative to what? Relative to my current directory. So in this case, my current directory is a Python directory. So, and CTA 120, it's in, you can go and refer the picture, but in my case, I remember this really well. So, currently I am in Python, which is like data and Python are siblings. Okay. Now, like I mentioned earlier, you cannot jump from your sibling, from one sibling to another sibling. We need to go to the parent. So go to the parent of Python, which is programming. So once you reach the programming, then you hop to data, and then you access your my picture JPEG. Okay. Once you get that, you need to again, this is your current directory is Python. So we need to go to the parent, which is parent of Python is programming. From there, again, it's in the different structure, the CTA 120 parallel structure. So I need to go find the common parent here. So I go to the parent of programming, which is nothing but courses. So this is, so let me write this for your, again, refer the picture for your understanding. So this is programming, right? And then I go to courses. From courses, then courses, I found the common parent. From courses, I go to system, and then from system, I reach CTA 120, and I'm saying, go and place my JPEG file there. So that's the relative path. Okay, I will demo that just in case. Okay, so now let's look at the uh, extended copy. Okay, so I'm using an absolute path here, and I want to place a data directory into wake directory. Okay, I'm using something for some other reasons. I want to copy all the data and subdirectories in the data to wake directory. Okay, so I might want to share it to somebody else in my wake tech. Okay, that might be the reason. So all you need to do is x copy and then give the source and destination. The key thing to remember is you need to use some important options here. If you do plain vanilla copy, it may not, you may not get the desired result what you want, right? If you just don't give anything, it will not copy the subdirectories. Who knows, you might want that option. But if you want to include your directory and all the subdirectories in the directory, including the empty directory, I will use -e. Mostly, this is kind of this is one option. There is another option like minus /s. If you don't want to include empty directories, you can just ignore empty directories and just copy all the directories and subdirectories. Okay. So again, I'll demo that. So don't worry about that. But that's the extended copy. Let's moving forward. Suppose I want to display my current directory, like which directory I'm currently working. If you just type cd, it will echo where you are currently located, which directory you are currently placed. Okay. The other common commands we use is we rename some of the files. Again, one of the option is when you can copy it. During the copy, you can always change the name. That's one way to do it. But hey, I don't want to create another copy. Whatever the existing file, I want to change the name of that file. Then you use a rename command. Okay. Again, you see that you just command, and then the key thing is you're accessing the resource using path. Here I'm using relative path. I already discussed many times, so you should be able to figure it out by yourself. Now, if I want to move is another command. It's a really a move as multiple things. Okay, move can rename your file, and also it can relocate your file. Okay, so move is a super command than a rename. Okay, so you can just use to rename it, or you can use that to move from one location to another location. All right, suppose anything you want to delete, you have to be really careful because you're actually modifying the structure. So please pay attention to anything you delete. For that matter, even when you're creating also, you have to be careful. So when you want to delete a file, right? So basically you can say, you can use del command to delete it. In this case, I am in the current directory Python. So how can I delete my picture? So I go to programming my parent, and then I hopped into data, and then I delete the file. So suppose if I want to delete a directory, not the files, then Windows uses a special command called remove directory or RD. Okay, so both are the same commands. In this case, if you want to remove all the directories and the subdirectories, then you use -s. Again, please be careful when you're trying to do this kind of things. You need to know exactly what you're doing. If you just delete it, sometimes it's irreversible. So please pay attention to that. Anything we are deleting it, you can always recover, but you don't want to go to that route. Okay, so another simple but very useful commands are like if you use CLS, it'll clear the screen for you. If the screen is cluttered with so many things, you can always clear screen and then start from clean state. The other key thing is I might use set of commands again and again. It's tedious for me to type every time. So there comes the help from the operating system. So operating system always stores the history of command, whatever the commands you recently used, almost thousands of commands in Linux. I always use this. So in your workflow, you will always use like 20, 30 commands, keep repetitively. So instead of typing all the time, you can use up arrows and down arrows to browse your recent commands and then just use it. Just modify, change the path, or or sometimes most of the time you might repeat the same command. So just make use of this nice little shortcut. The other key shortcut is it's tedious to type the entire command, and when you're typing you'll always make some typo error, right? So it's very annoying. So instead of, what you can do is tab key is my best friend. That will auto complete most of the commands and also your path, directory, and everything. So try to use tab keys and up arrows and down arrows at the maximum. So if you're really an expert user, I'm not claim myself expert, but when I am in command prompt, I'll never touch my mouse. Okay, everything I'll handle through keyboard, which is much faster, and I can accomplish many things faster. All right, so the last but not least, the command called tree command. It's very useful. Okay, so this is again a nice little neat little thing. Like there are, if you want to use in Linux some this kind of tree, it's not an inbuilt. You need to add some packages, but in Microsoft they provide this as a default. So the tree command will give you a hierarchical thing, like a graphical user interface kind of a deal here, right? You can see exactly how your hierarchy, the directory hierarchy is. Again, so there are options you need to use. So here I'm using dot. Dot means my current directory is my path, and then I'm saying display the names of the files in each folder. So that's what this my F is doing. So again, just I'll demo that, and then you can always use help. Okay, so there comes the last part of it. So batch scripting. So as an administrator, most of the times you will not be writing single command. You will do sometimes, but you want to do some complex task which involves multiples of commands. Okay, group of commands you need to use. So how do you do that? How do you group those commands and use it? There comes the uh, interesting concept called scripts, right? So in Windows, we build batch script. The batch script is nothing but it's a kind of group of commands you will use so that you accomplish a specific task. So one of the common things we do in our olden days, like we need to back up a database. So backing up a database is key, right? You don't want to lose your data. Every night at midnight, I want to launch this task and automate this process. So you'll have many commands to do that. You will write all those commands and then write it as a script and use the Windows scheduler. You will schedule that like every day midnight, launch this script, and it'll launch, and then voila, it'll just back up your database. You don't need to intervene there. All right, so rem is a keyword in bash script to write your comments. Comments are very key in the programming because you may have your ideas, and in program there are thousands of ways you can solve your one like for you can write thousands of ways for writing a same solution. So it's your idea. To express to your idea to others, you need to use comments more so that people understand what you're trying to do. So in this case, I'm trying to write a simple batch script where the first line is comment. This is just a demo, So it's a pretty bad command, but just this is the purpose of my file. So I just write this is demo, and first command I'm using is switch off my echo. That means don't show my commands output. So I'm switching off the echo, and then I'm creating two directories, my dir and my subdirectory. After I create the directories, I'm just using a tree. I'm displaying my directories. After displaying it, I'm just showing a simple message like now you can see my new directory, and then I'm just displaying my current directory where I am placed. It's just a this is like a meaningless example, but just to demo you like how you can write your batch script. Okay, so there comes most of your commands and scripting. It's over. There are other couple of things you might be tested in your Windows exam. Okay, one is you might ask to create a restore point. Okay, how do you create a restore point? So all you need to do is go to your in the search uh, box, right? In Windows, you will have a search box, right? In that search box, type system restore. So when you type system, even system res, the create restore point menu item will be popping up. So once it popped up, just select that, okay? Then it will show this dialog box. In this dialog box, sometimes your protection might be on, okay? It might be off. If that is the case, you need to go and switch on this protection. Okay, this is not really part of this course, so we just so if it is off, you need to switch on that. Okay, in my case, it's already on, so all I need to do is go and click the create button for my restore point. Then I'll get this dialog box, and then I'll say my restore point name, and then click the create. It'll create a restore point. Restore point is nothing but it's a snapshot of my entire file system, so that if anything goes wrong in the future, I can go and restore my system from this point onwards. That's the main idea here. It's again some kind of backup. Okay, it's a classic thing for you to write as a batch script also. Okay, all right. So once you created the restore point, you can see whether the restore point is created or not, like clicking on this system restore button, right? This will display all the restore points you are currently having. That sometimes if you have multiple, like thousands of like hundreds of restore points, it may not show all, so you can show more here. But in my case, I created only two restore points. Again, this is automatically created by Microsoft because it's whenever it's update the Windows operating system, I may not like the new things, or um, it might make my Windows operating system faulty. Like some of my drivers may not work, and it's very annoying. So I'll go and restore this point, and then I can merrily move forward. Okay, so that's the restore point. The other interesting management task you might want to do is how to create users. Okay, in this case, you go to the Windows settings. How you go to the Windows settings? Again, go to your uh, like a search bar in the beginning of the window, like, and then type settings. You can go to settings. There it will show up. So once you are in the settings, click on the accounts, and then it will display other users. Okay, go and click the other users menu item. Okay, once you select the other users, it will come to this dialog box, this window, and then here you have a add account button. Once you click the add account, it will prompt you